and welcome to this week's review on My Hero Academia Vigilantes, the manga series, and this week I'm reviewing Volume 9. These are my thoughts and feelings about the volume as a whole. Of course, you want to know about my feelings on specific chapters, go back and listen to those reviews, but in any case, let's do what we always do with these reviews by starting out with the positives and the headline positives, the big things I'm discussing over the course of this video. I like the drama that we get throughout. I enjoyed the renewed focus on our main cast, and I think that we get a great cliffhanger here. So here we are, time for the big volume review where I look at the volume as a whole. As such, like I say, I'm not looking at individual chapters. This is about my feeling of this volume as a whole entity. And without preempting the overview too much, I think that this volume was far better than the last one and certainly better than the one before that. Though it does feel a little bit disjointed here and there, but nonetheless, I think that what we have here is great and is in its own way fantastic. I enjoyed the drama that we got throughout all of this, as ultimately it does focus down on two very different characters. We have the opening half of this volume that's focused very much on Eraser Head and tying up his storyline, and then we get into the PopStep stuff, which makes up the latter half of this volume. And it was only when I was writing this volume review that I realised that there is some... I'm not going to say it's mirroring, because I don't necessarily feel it is mirroring, but there is some wild thematic linking between the two of them when you really think about it, as both of these storylines are centered around self-belief and the struggle that these two characters have regarding it. Although, you know, it is taken in very different directions, as we know from having read it. Eraserheads is closer to a traditional superhero origin story, with all the bells and whistles that you get there, though with some purposely absent sort of expectations. You know, we have the bit where Oboro is giving the big speech to Gearing Up and I Can Believe in You. It's all setting up for a big power friendship ending and the big final farewell when he's going to be there bleeding out and I always believed in you and no, please don't die, Oboro, I need you, and then you know how all these things go. But that's not what we end up getting. That particular part on it ends on a very cold and terrifying and just horrible note, and then we see how that then echoes forward with the character of Eraserhead throughout the time immediately thereafter, and then into longer term of it. With PopSteps, I don't want to sound as though I'm saying this to be flippant, but it does feel closer to more traditional teen drama territory. This is a young woman with dreams and aspirations of becoming a pop star, to become a big name, but at the same time she wants to figure out who she really is. She wants to understand who she is as a person, not as an artist. She has been PopStep for so long that now she wants to know who she is, and she wants to be seen as who she truly is. Again, this is a storyline that has many of the trappings and story points and story beats as you would expect with that. A character that's trying to become themselves, to understand who they are as an artist, who they are as a creator of great art, a creator of work, coming across a mentor figure that is going to help them push them along in their own way, which is what we were getting with the manager before things took a very dark direction. Now, both are handled very well. Eraserheads, I think, is better purely because we get to see the full scale of the incident with him. We see the immediate aftermath that is, as we see in it, we see that haunting shot of him just looking over the wreckage where his friend was and just nothing but the sound of the rain. We have then a year or so after the fact where we see how that has affected him and his studies and how that is changing and making him evolve as a hero, and in some regards regress as a hero as well. Then we get that flip to what is the modern day in this storyline, and we get to see the full range of time, how we evolved and how we changed from this incident, how it's echoed and reverberated throughout his life, as we have all this material here to help us understand that, as well as leaving a few things absent so that we can fill in the gaps ourselves from how we read the material and how we understand it, as well as how we understand it with relation to the main series. It shows his growth in certain areas but also regression in others, and it helps to illustrate that path of how he became the hero that we know of in this series, as well as the teacher and the character that we know in the main series. Here they have the whole cloth to work with so that they can then work backwards. We can see how this character came to be the person that we know. We're having this all built out to us, and yes, some of the foreshadowing is heavy-handed, yes, yes, it does feel like a, certainly as far as the manga is concerned, remember Star Wars thing when we see that he's starting to take the naps now, which I'm glad they didn't do in the anime. I rewatched it, I'm glad they didn't do that bit, but nonetheless, I think it's better with his because we get to see the full scope of time here. PopSteps naturally doesn't have that because the story is still live. We can't really get reflective with them without knowing what's going to happen next. Maybe as this storyline develops, as time goes on, there will be a reflective period to see how did we get here and how was this impacted and echoed throughout our life from here. But with PopStep, we do see that she is someone who, unlike Eraser Head, is proactively trying to make her life better. Yes, Eraser Head, as we know him in the modern age, both in this story and the main story, does that, but when they're around the same age as each other, when he was a teenager, he was more withdrawn and within himself, and it was really for the support of his friends he ended up growing as a person. With PopStep, she's a lot more proactive, and he's trying to actively make her life better, even if she doesn't really know how to do that. She is someone that we see frequently having these crash outs, time and again, but she tries to come back stronger. She doesn't distance herself from others to the extent that Eraserhead did, though she does to an extent, given that it's clear she doesn't keep people in the loop as to what she's doing and how she deals with things. It's clear that President Mike, in the aftermath of everything that happened with Oboro, knew what Eraserhead was up to. He kept tabs on him, he was there to support him in a way that PopStep's comrades at this little Narahata Fest thing really aren't doing. But of course, with both those characters, you understand why that is. With Eraserhead, you know that he's a withdrawn, introverted person, so he isn't really the kind to reach out to people, but he has people around him that can reach out to him and will keep tabs out of him. And ultimately, the direction that he went out through that time period after the incident and through to the modern day is due to trauma and fear from that incident. With PopStep, she does it because she wants something that is her own. She feels that she owes the Narahata Fest and its successes to Makoto and the others. While she was a key part in making that successful, it isn't really hers. And even with the PopStep persona that is hers, she started out doing covers and parody songs and novelty songs when she was younger. And it's only really now that she's having someone that really does reflect who she is. And it is fascinating to see how these characters trying to address their traumas and how having people in their lives can impact that and how it can help them evolve, or it should help them evolve, had things been differently for both of them, especially with PopStep. Both of these storylines understand and I don't want to sound flippant here when I say this, but it understands the confusion and difficulties that teenagers can find themselves in when they're going through similar kind of issues in their life, when they're trying to figure out who they really are, who they are deep down, and figuring out how to express that. And it doesn't talk down to those fears and anxieties, it doesn't belittle them or mock them. It doesn't treat them as just being a case of the blues, or just being, oh well, it's just something that we go through, as other series might well do. But at the same time, it doesn't give a quick fix or any clear solution to how you solve those feelings. Now, granted, in any other scenario, what we see with PopStep talking through her fears and anxieties, talking about where she is with the manager, would be something close to a solution as you could get with these kind of anxieties and fears, but we know where that ends up going given the direction of this story. But like I say, in any other storyline where you're treating with a character who wants to make themselves an artist, who wants to express themselves, having a mentor-like figure, even if they aren't the greatest of mentors, a confidant, as the manager appeared to be, will be something you would see in those stories. But regardless, it treats both of these characters as being the authors of their own life story, for better or worse. And in the end, neither of them really end up making the right decision, even if it is ultimately something that works out okay for them in the end. And I do respect that fact. Like I say, I like the fact they aren't talking down these feelings and these emotions, and that they're ensuring that these characters are able to come to these conclusions in a way that does feel human. Yes, these two storylines go in very different directions as far as the end of this volume is concerned, But these are characters that at the end of the day are in the situations that they are in for better or worse due to their actions and the actions of people around them. Eraserhead's anxiety is insular, PopStep's is more external. We see those shots where it's clear that Eraserhead isn't uncomfortable in these scenarios, but you just see him just kind of look down and look away from people. It's a very cold anxiety. But with PopStep, you see those moments, like when she's listening into this conversation that Crawl and Makoto are having, where it looks like she's having a heart attack. She's someone that is far more explosive with her emotions, and that is something that does push people away from him. And neither treatment, neither response to this anxiety is really healthy, but the story doesn't pretend that either is. They are both people who needed people around to help them. Only one of those actually ended up getting it. And that is a sad just state of the affairs as far as this story ends up going. Eraserhead's storyline is one of the best superhero storylines I've read. It's very neat and self-contained. It feels grounded. It feels truthful. It is a story of a young man struggling with his sense of self-worth and trying to overcome it, with the monster being a metaphor for these fears, as well as the recurring metaphor of the stray cat, and how that then informs how he sees his students, how he sees Eri in the main series. And it is this kind of more deeper contextual, subtextual storytelling that is very absent with this entire series, so I am glad that we get it here. Now, with all that said, I do like the fact that we are getting this greater focus back on our main cast. As much as I love the stuff with Eraserhead, the fact that we are now starting to drill down back to these characters after what feels like 2 volumes of it being about other people, and these characters that are supposed to be our main leads just being there is something I do like. The core of this, as I've been saying, is PopStep trying to be herself and trying to discover who she truly is. She wants to be herself, but she doesn't know who that self is. That might seem absurd, but that's how it can feel. She wants to have something that is her own, something that belongs to herself, truly herself, not Makoto, not the Naruhata Fest, not even the PopStep persona, something that is truly hers. And to a certain extent, Makoto and Crawler want this too, arguably. Makoto has left a very high-paying gig in America to come back to Japan where things are normal and that she can deal with normal people, where she's doing something that she feels is a lot more meaningful than trying to be the press secretary for a controversy-prone superhero. Crawl is someone who has lived his dream. He's gone through the pains and fears of it, but now just wants something stable. He doesn't want to be in a position where he's constantly running here, there, and everywhere. He understands this because the truth of the matter is that as much as he would want to be a hero, as far as he's concerned in this moment, becoming a hero is functionally close to him. He wants to have a career. He wants to have one that is picked for himself. He wants to go out on all of this in his own terms. And I do like this fact that we are getting this deeper look into their personalities. What we get towards the end of this volume, where Crawl is thinking back on PopStep and what she means to him, is the most insightful thing that we've had with this character for really a very long time. It's probably the most insightful look into him as a character I think we've probably ever had. Certainly one that's been delivered from his point of view. He's a character that, from what we've seen, what is expressed here, has just come to accept that people just leave you, that there comes a point where people just aren't in your life anymore, as we see as when he's reflecting on this, the shot of Knuckle Duster's equipment and how that's just been there. And this is something he does mention a couple volumes ago and at the end of the first season of the anime, that people just enter and leave your life without you ever really knowing and feeling it. And there's a part of him that's still wondering, is PopStep like that? And if she is, should he have said something? And if he should have said something, what does he say? Because what does she mean to him? And I do like what we see here with that. It's showing this emotional maturing of a character that's just kind of been passive. And it seems to be the moment where he's realising that he can't be as passive with his life, that he needs to be more proactive with it and be more of a part of the world in which he's living in. even if that means he might have to make some very difficult choices going forward. And the last point of praise that I have for this part of the video is that I think the cliffhanger is great. It works as more than just setting up the next action piece. It does more than just set up for the next chapter. It is a cliffhanger that reflects on the failures of the cast, from the personal failings of PopStep to really have the courage to be herself and to express herself and just to say what's truly inside of her, to the failing of Crawler to see what has been obvious and in front of him for years at this point as far as her feelings to him are concerned. It reflects Makoto's for not engaging with PopStep more directly and not being a more proactive aspect of the lives of people that she's supposed to care and support. With the Naruhatafest characters, it's about them not supporting or really having much of a friendship with one of their people. They've treated her less as a friend and more as a co-worker, and had that not been the case, she might have not gone down this path. And now PopStep has turned into this twisted parody of herself. She went on this journey to become her truer self, but now she's become this dark parody of what people see her as, where she's dressed in a way that is more provocative, in a way that is designed to be more... It's a design that, as I've mentioned in the previous video, I'm not comfortable with, but I understand it, and it makes thematic sense, given what this parasite does and how it makes people feel. Her journey was supposed to be one of self-discovery, but in the end, it's one that's doomed her. It was a journey that all of us ultimately ends up taking, but because she had no one there to really support her or help her, she's been lost. And now there's going to be this big struggle to bring her back physically and mentally. And of course, yeah, there is the superhero side of it, where we have Crawler going off to look for PopStep. PopStep's now got this strange bee parasite as exploding bomb bees, and she's backed up by number 6, who can move so fast time slows down. Like, Crawler is in way over his head and he has no one there to save him, no one there to help him. So how he deals with that is something I'm excited to see, if he even can. I've got a feeling this next little storyline might not go the entire volume, the entire length of the next volume, but we'll soon see about that. I hope it does, because this feels like a major twist. I'd be a shame if it just ended after about 3 or 4 chapters. With that said, let us get into the negatives, and I have to say, I will do the headline negatives. I think that this volume is structurally wonky. I don't like the time skip, and I feel that the number 6 reveal happened too soon. This is a volume that, whilst I did enjoy it, and I do enjoy the content therein, this is a volume where the first 4 chapters or so is just the tail end of a storyline that started in the last volume, and I think that's a poor decision. I know that the structure of these volumes seems to come more so down to just the sheer weight of the maths, that each of these volumes has to be a set number of chapters long, and it just so happens that this storyline overran into this one. And again, I do like the storyline. I do enjoy it, but I feel that it's something that does take time away that could have made this storyline with PopStep better and would have given more time for it to just go into some of the more minutiae here and really give more time for all those problems to just build up more. Because it feels like what we have with PopStep has barely had time to get going, and now she's already turned evil. It feels like there's a good 3 or 4 chapters of this storyline that are just missing, of build-up and of developing this tension, of this will they, won't they with number 6, which I will discuss later on. And it feels like these attempts for her to understand who she is and really go into that personal path of self-discovery just really haven't happened here. The big thing about that twist, the big thing about the reveal that number 6 is the bad guy, or rather the manager is number 6, is something that should hit like a freight train. But it's something that we already got it revealed who he was in the previous chapter, which is again is something we'll talk about. But even if it wasn't, this is coming after about maybe 2 or 3 volumes of, 2 or 3 chapters of build-up. and that doesn't work for me, as those chapters that are dedicated to the tail end of the Eraser Head stuff feels like it takes out time that could have been spent building up this tension, so that when this stuff happened, it really did hit hard. The other major issue that I have with this volume is one that I've mentioned in the past. I've mentioned it in previous chapter reviews. I've mentioned it in the anime review. But I apologise if it sounds like I am acting like a broken record here. But the time skip is something that I just do not like. I understand why it is here. I understand it, and I'm not against time skips in general. But it feels as though we've lost something potentially interesting here. Something that I think is, as far as these characters is concerned, far more interesting than just going into the backstory of a character from the main series, as we got with Eraser Head. Towards the end of the last volume, we had it set up that Crawler was going to be very much under the thumb from Makoto's brother. That he had warned her that we will look the other way from the stuff that he's done before the Sky Egg, given how he helped save the day here. But if he steps out of line, if he continues to be a vigilante, we're gonna go after him. And Makoto never said that to Crawler, so he just would continue on being a vigilante, despite the fact that the police are going to be actively looking for him and actively trying to stop him from doing that. Even if he's being innocent, even if he's just there for the sake of being there, even if he's there by sheer freak happenstance, he's gonna get in bother for it. And that isn't what happened. It feels as though there's this long extended period where Crawler should have been closely monitored, and the police are there trying to take care of him, trying to arrest him, and it just never happens. It doesn't go anywhere at all. I mean, just think about it. This is going to be... It was setting up for a storyline where Crawler really wouldn't have had anyone to really support him aside from PopStep. Makoto would be in the United States, Edward's Captain Celebrity. He doesn't really have anyone that's really going to go out to bat for him apart from Knuckle Duster, and he, as far as Crawler is concerned, isn't there anymore. So it would have meant PopStep and Crawler and PopStep having to deal with all this insane crap on their own, just trying to survive through all of this while just being the best people they can do in these circumstances. I could understand why they didn't get involved in a greater investigation into Trigger, given that number 6, as far as his story is concerned, was dead and had disappeared, so therefore these incidents would have stopped, but he was active for 2 years and Makoto's brother didn't do anything. And that feels odd, especially bearing in mind that he threatened that he would. And I will admit that maybe if they just didn't have that scene in, they just didn't have that line in it, this would be less of a problem, that he just continued to bungle about in the background, but that's not what we get. It feels like there's a wealth of things that could have been done over that 2-year time period that we're never going to see, and there was no attempt to even show or to give hint to. Maybe had the anime been more successful, you could have had a movie or OVA during this time period. Maybe if as suggested in one of the anime reviews, you could have had a Lost Cases thing where we cover what happened over this time period, but that's not what we get. Instead, so much has been skipped, and again, I'm not against the idea of doing these time skips on principle, but I think that there's something that needs to be done here to justify certain elements not happening. Like, it was only a matter of chapters ago, as far as this time skip was concerned, where Makoto's brother was setting up for, if Crawler does anything, I'm gonna get him, and then nothing happened. And even then, I still think that if we're going to do this, it could have been done in a way which is just more dynamic. We could have had this montage of all these events of this 2-year time period where Crawler was saving the day and doing things and gradually becoming more popular. And by contrast, we could have had this montage of PopStep becoming less popular over time. And just seeing these just two characters going in very different directions, so that when we have the discussion of, oh, Narahata Fest is in the shitter, it feels like it's actually something that we've seen happen over a time period, rather than something that's happening for the sake of, well, then we can get number 6 to do horrible things to PopStep. And it makes it feel like this attempt to refocus attention on these characters is being done in a rather guileless way, and is being done so it can justify superhero action more so than developing the characters themselves. And to go back to something I've been mentioning thus far in the negatives, I think the number 6 reveal was done too soon. Had we not had the stuff with Eraser Head towards the start of this volume, you could have had extra chapters building up the character of the manager and building up some kind of suspense and is he or isn't he evil? Just kind of build up this mystery. Maybe he is just a guy. Maybe he is just an ordinary guy and it's just a bit clumsy and a bit bungling, and that's about as far as he's concerned as far as a bad guy. But we don't have that. We only have maybe 2 or 3 chapters where he's just himself as we know him as the manager, and then he turns evil. Then we get the reveal he's evil, and then it's just a case of, okay, when we get into the fireworks factory, when's PopStep going to be taken? When is this horrible thing going to happen to her? And it feels, again, rather guileless in order for us to get that. I know that things can be different as far as manga and anime is concerned, as far as setting these things up is concerned, but if we're going to set up the tension is something that needs to be built out over a longer period of time than this. And I'm just thinking how this would end up going in the anime, where it would almost be minutes later that this... I suppose, no, to be fair, in the anime it would probably work better because these chapters are going to be mushed together into a single episode, so if it's revealed halfway through the episode that this guy is number 6, then the episode ends with PopStep being taken in, that would work better because the tension is then self-contained and it can build up there. Whereas if you're spanning this over the course of a handful of weeks, it doesn't quite work. I know this might sound insane, but maybe in the anime it'll work better, but here it feels as though more time was needed, whereas in the anime you'd need less. I know this sounds insane, we'll see where it goes. With that said, let's get into the overview and say that I think this is a great volume. I think it's one of the best that we've had. Yes, a lot of that comes down to the strength of the Eraser Head storyline, but even discounting that, I still like what they were doing with PopStep, as it is very relatable to me as someone who has been involved in the arts and in performance, and seeing that struggle of someone trying to make it, trying to be the artist that they want to, but having to also have to deal with the realities of who they are as a person and the nature of the work and the society that they live in. I really do like that, and I wish that's something they could have gone into greater detail on to some degree or another, but we'll soon see where it goes. I am excited to see what we have next, but I have this sinking suspicion that it's going to be a case of, okay, we're effectively going to be writing PopStep out, and she's like the one interesting character this series has at the moment, and then we're going to be left with his Crawler, and I don't know how we're going to see out the next 5 or so volumes after this, but we'll soon see about that. With all that said and done, it's time for Comment Corner! It's time for Comment Corner in the middle of a heat wave, so forgive me if this was rather short, but we've only got the one comment, and the comment comes from... and it's just disappeared off my screen. It comes from Big X1, who says, I think this is the best volume since Volume 4. This, of course, referring to, well, the volume that I've just reviewed, because in the previous video I asked you for your thoughts and feelings on this volume as a whole. So let me know if there's anything else you want to say or feel about this particular volume, whether you loved it, whether you hated it, let me know in the comment section down below. Be sure to like, favourite, subscribe, and do all that kind of fun YouTube stuff. With all that said, for reasons I do briefly touch on in the next video, I think I really don't remember, the heat has fried my brain. I am falling a little bit behind on these reviews, so at some point next week I need to build up my my back catalogue again, so I'm not so closely whatever. Sorry, heatwave stuff, thank you, and see you next time. Goodbye. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, favourite, subscribe, click the bell, and do all the YouTubey stuff that YouTube wants you to do. Go on, it'll do me a power of good. Until next time, my friends, goodbye!